Next on Dealing with Life.
Grief comes out in many different ways. It can come out in depression, can come out in anxiety, it can come out in anger.
No one is immune to grief.
Whatever we've lost, a job, a child, a pet, all of those produce pain.
But there are answers.
Grief recovery helps us to find completion with the pain that we have that's tied into what we lost. It hurts so bad and we don't know what to do, and that letting go process, it's the image of the butterfly that's in the cocoon, has to struggle to get out, and I don't like this process.
So speak life when the sun won't shine and you don't know why. Look into the eyes of the broken hearted, watch them come alive as soon as you speak hope, you speak love, you speak life.
Hi, and welcome to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, and today's program is going to be something that I think you and anybody that you know can benefit from. We're going to talk about loss and grief recovery. We all have gone through loss and grief, and today we're going to define causes of grief and myths about grief. All our lives we've been instructed that time will heal, or you just need to be stronger to deal with grief. And that's not necessarily true. There are tools out there close by that can help you find peace in your pain. And there very well may be things in your distant past that you haven't gotten over. You've just shelved it. Today's show is brought to you by Malone Dentistry. In the studio with me today is Joy Gaetner. So glad to have you. How are you?
I'm good, and I am just honored to be here, Tom. Thank you.
Your name says it all. Joy.
Well, thank you.
That's what I think. That's what the goal in our life should be, is to always pursue joy.
Yes.
And I'm talking about not just you, but joy.
Yes.
So
and joy instead of happiness.
Yes.
You can have joy even in the darkest times.
Yes, happiness is I don't know. It's an emotion. Joy is a choice.
Yes.
And so we're going to dive into that. You are a certified grief recovery specialist. Is that right?
I am. Yes.
You are with the grief recovery method.
Yes.
So explain real quickly what that is.
Well, the grief recovery method is an action program to help individuals move from loss into healing and to let go of the pain that's associated with that loss.
All right.
So loss is a word that we often just talked about or grief is a word that we often talk about with just death.
Right. Yeah, you just associate it with loss.
Yes, but grief recovery has taught me that any kind of a loss that we have, whether it's the loss of my home, my health, a divorce, loss of lifestyle, retirement has a loss in it because
it's a change.
It is a change.
Right.
And even though retirement, graduation, moving is exciting many times and we're looking forward to it, we've lost maybe our structure, we've lost our purpose, we've maybe lost our friends, our identity.
Yeah.
So each one of those losses produces a death of something. And so I believe that we all experience grief, but we don't know what to call it. We've got the feeling in our gut.
Yeah.
But we
call
don't.
It transition.
Yeah, or
nice,
something good.
Pretty word.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's still this pain in my gut or an emptiness or something that I don't know what to do with it. And if I can't name it, I'm at a loss. Didn't mean that pun, but I'm at a loss to move through it. I get stuck in that.
Right. And I think stuck is a word that's going to be repeated a lot in our time together.
Yes.
So, but grief, I don't know. It's become two different things. It's become very in fashion because people are not as afraid to talk about it these days, but also it's become a way of our society. And I think a lot of people believe that they should just live with it.
To live in the pain of it. It's almost like a badge, or if I really love someone or something, then I wear those dark clothes
Yes.
and that grief feeling.
When you let go of that, then you've let go of that person.
Yes,
And
and that's not a true statement.
Agreed.
Grief will fog our looking back at the past. We have many regrets when we look back of what we wish would have been different,
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
more. And so we have the pain that's associated with what we didn't, what
What
changed
we
or what
didn't do. Sure.
Yeah.
If you lose a parent, you instantly look back. Why didn't I spend more time?
Exactly.
Why did and you start just beating yourself up, and
Yes.
I would include myself very
Well,
much in that.
Yeah, I think it's a human nature. And the definition that we use for grief is the conflicting feeling of something that has ended or changed. End would be a death, job change, or loss of job would be a changing of something.
Sure, divorce.
Divorce is certainly that.
Yes.
And so when that changes, we grieve. We feel that pain of what we don't have that we wish we had, and all the things that we left unsaid. It's the unsaid communication that causes the pain. Grief recovery doesn't take away the sadness, because if I really love something, there will always be sadness.
Sure.
It's like a scar. I'm a 13-year breast cancer survivor, so I have a scar. So that reminds me of that time and that cancer.
Right, but
and,
you
and
were
that
able,
healing.
at some point, as the healing progressed, you were able to move ahead with life.
Yes, and I'm not stuck in the pain of that cancer. I'm not going through the chemo and the radiation and the hair loss and all of that.
Right.
But I'm sad that I had to go through that. But I can look back and see the good in it. The pain does not cloud my eyes, so all I see is the negative of
The
that.
difficulty.
Yes.
Sure. And I think that is, in my life, that's a big part of the healing process, is looking for the blessings.
Yes.
Very difficult to do when you're in the midst of it and you're in the storm.
Right. And grief recovery helps me, I call the group that we do Making Peace with Our Past. Because when I can look back and not have the regrets and the pain from the things that I lost, I can look forward into my future
Right.
and not have as much worry, because I don't have to worry that, that bad thing's going to happen, because I have completed that process that I had with that pain
Right.
associated with that loss. And so I can live more freely, and I can live in my present and be fully present.
And be happy with it.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, enjoy
yes,
it. Sure.
and be grateful and for what I do have, and holding the both and the phrase of being able to live life on life's terms is something when I heard the title of this show.
Sure.
That's what it's the tension of, we all have negative things that happen in our life. But if we allow them to cloud our eyes, we will miss
You'll
the
never
positive.
see it. You'll never see it.
Yes.
And I don't think life is all about it's all going to be easy. It's all going to be comfortable. No, we should never plan for that.
No,
No, it's not going to happen. So, real quickly, kind of give us a synopsis of your past, of how you arrived onto the grief recovery method.
Okay, it's a long story. We'll put it short,
Right.
okay?
You got 8 seconds.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding.
It's like riding a bull, right?
Yeah.
Then that's a success. Well, I was raised in a Christian home and loved to go to church, and was in church 3 times a week. My dad was an elder in the church, and at 12 years old at church camp, I gave my life to God,
Right.
and wanted to be a minister's wife. And so I met someone in high school who wanted to be in ministry as well. So we got married, went to Bible college, got married, and then was in the ministry for 35 years.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was my dream, and I always thought, God gave me everything that I want. I have 2 children, and a boy and a girl, so it's like that perfect.
It's perfect.
Yes,
Yes.
I was living in Cinderella land,
and a little bow on top.
Exactly. And as I tell that story, I always forget to say, when I was 6 years old, I was molested by the minister at my home church.
Okay.
And it was back in the 60s, and my folks never, after I told them, never spoke a word about that.
So it was shelved.
It was shelved. And the little girl in me thought that there was something wrong with me.
Right. Right.
That I had done something wrong.
So you had to carry that
I
for a long
did.
time.
For 46 years.
Wow.
I was silent, except to mention it, to tell my mom and dad, and then I told my fiance, who became my husband. But nobody knew how to handle that.
What do you do with that? Nobody's trained for that.
Yeah. And so in my mind, it was it was a non-event. But after 35 years of marriage and in the ministry, my husband decided to leave, and so we went through a divorce, and
Ouch.
that just about it did kill me.
Yeah,
a lot of
I
me
lived
died.
that dream. I understand that pain.
Yes,
Because it's not only the pain of an end of a marriage, but it's desertion. It's what's wrong with me? Why did they leave?
Yes.
That hurts. That hurts a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was my identity.
Sure.
I was a minister's wife.
Well, it was your dream.
It was my dream.
Yeah.
I was a Bible college professor's wife, and I loved all of that. And so when you don't have a minister or a Bible college professor to be married to, then you're not the Bible college professor's wife or the minister's wife. And so,
well, everything about you,
I didn't have any identity.
Yeah, the dreams ahead, everything died.
Right.
I know that.
And through that period, in those 3 years, because I was going through a divorce, I worked at a Bible college and from up north in Ohio. Lost my job there, lost our home because that was tied into the package of my husband.
Husband, okay. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, well, I stole it for somebody else, and it's the best word that I can say. That
well, being a guy, it's hard to have a husband, but I think that's
and
perfect.
we still have not come up with a word for we wives who are our exes.
Right.
But anyhow, I've got that. But so I lost, my job, my home, my community didn't know what to do with me. They were loving, but didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah, but there's a mark. Yeah, all of a sudden there's something I don't want to talk about.
Yes.
With you.
And I noticed that my cancer came in the middle of that as well.
Yeah.
And stress is exactly, because for 13 months didn't say anything to anybody about the marriage falling apart.
Yeah, you didn't want to admit that that something was wrong.
Too ashamed.
Yes.
Too ashamed. And
there's that possibility that it might come back and nobody will know.
Yes.
Well, no, never mind. Yeah, that's hard.
So, and my mother passed away in that time. So, in all of that, it was like I lost everything except my children. And that both and has saved my life. And I was moving out of my house to a friend's bedroom.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a place to live. And my son's mother-in-law, who is at that point would have been a 13-year recovering alcoholic and drug addict, had just opened up a halfway house for women.
Oh, wow.
About 6 months before that. And she asked me if I'd like to be a spiritual director in the house and live with the ladies there. And I thought, yes, I am ministry. And I know I am a wounded healer. I know that. And ministry is what I love to do, and to be with people and be in that healing process.
Well, a wounded healer is probably the best kind.
Yeah.
Because you understand the pain.
Yes. And so I ended up living in the halfway house, and I was so broken at that point that I really wasn't able to give very much.
Yeah, you only gave about half.
Not even.
Oh, that's silly.
Yeah, I gave less than that.
Okay.
Took me a while to get that, Joe. But what it did, Tom, was that I was privileged to be able to learn the 12 steps of recovery and the community of recovery from the inside of 12 steps.
Wow, okay.
I don't have a substance addiction and know very much that I have an addiction with behaviors as well as relationships. My main addiction was I was addicted to one man, and I was addicted to being married. And when those two things were taken away, I realized that they had become my idols.
Mm-hmm. You worshipped them?
I worshipped them. And
when that disappears,
it was really dark and scary.
It's a faith shaker.
It is. And I didn't know where else to go but to God, because I loved God and that's all I knew.
Yeah.
and came from the perspective that you just need to pray more, read more, maybe do more fasting, more.
Yeah, you're not doing something right.
I'm not. It's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not go to counseling, because counseling is for those weak people who don't pray.
Yeah, right. They're really in trouble.
And then I realized I'm one of those weak, broken people, and I need help. And so for the first time in my life, I was very vulnerable and asked for help. Went to counselors, went to small groups, and that's when my abuse bubbled up.
Okay.
Because the counselor said, well, what did you do when that happened? And I said, well, you would just move on. It's just a non-event. And so that secret, I often think that God allowed for all of these other losses to go back to the little girl inside of me to
find
say,
healing from that.
You're all right, little Joy.
Wow.
So
Joy Gaetner is with us, and we've just scratched the surface so far of who you are and what you're about and your passion for doing this.
Yes.
You are a certified grief recovery counselor, and that has a lot of magic. Specialist. I'm
yes,
sorry.
Yes.
And you're with the grief recovery method.
And I'm
I think
also
that's
founder of Walking with Joy, a ministry that I have founded to help the brokenhearted find hope and healing again.
How magic. And there's so many of us walking around acting as if nothing's wrong and we're dying inside.
Exactly.
Dying.
Too ashamed.
Yes.
Too ashamed.
Well,
to
we're
speak
gonna dig into that more in a minute. This is Dealing with Life. You can't get any more dealing with life than this. Joy Gaetner, I'm Tom Baker, and we'll deal with more in just a second.
I will listen and believe the voice of truth. I'm falling apart. I'm barely breathing with a broken heart that's still beating.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, author of One Dog's Faith. That's a book about life, about worry, about dogs through the eyes of a dog. One Dog's Faith, available on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, and also Long's Drugstore here locally, and Farragut Pharmacy, just to name a couple. We are dealing with life today. That's the name of the show, but it's also what we're all about, and this gets to the heart of it. Grief. Grief is something that no one is immune to. There's no class on how to deal with it, we thought. Joy Gaetner is with me. Joy is a certified grief recovery specialist, and you're with the Grief Recovery Method, which is a nationwide effort and program. Mm-hmm. And you know what is funny, I listen to myself say it, but one of the things you say often is death is not the only source of loss.
No, there's many losses in our life that something dies within us, whether it's the loss of a job, loss of finances, loss of a pet.
Oh, that hurts so bad.
It does. You see on
Yes.
Facebook, we love our pets and they love us so unconditionally.
Yes.
that is such a close relationship that we have. The loss of the end of an addiction. And that is...
That's hard to
most people don't get that.
Right.
But living in recovery, when you become clean and sober, then all of a sudden you have lost your best friend.
Mm-hmm. Your whole lifestyle.
Yes, but your best friend, because when things go wrong and hurt you, you go to that drug or that alcohol or non-substance addictions. I go to that relationship or that person or that workaholic or that shopaholic or that
the things
whatever.
that you thought were going to fix it.
Yes.
Or at least numb the pain.
Numb the pain's what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden I am clean of that and not doing that, and I can't numb the pain.
Right.
So grief recovery gives us an action plan to move beyond the loss and the pain.
Okay.
So that we can live free and we can have joy and peace again. Other losses would include my health, a faith.
Yeah.
Like we talked earlier about retirement, graduation, or moving. If I move
absolutely.
someplace, I've lost my community. I've lost my hairdresser. I've lost my church I go to. I may have lost my favorite home. I love that home, and then all of a sudden, I'm.
It's exciting, but it's also scary.
It is. And so that is a death. So we need to grieve that and look at the things. Grief is the end of something or the change in something that we loved.
Okay.
And so grief is that processing. If you're grieving is normal and natural. It's what we're supposed to do. That's the process that we were made to do. But it is hard.
We avoid it.
And we don't have tools for it.
Right.
And grief comes out in many different ways. It can come out in depression, can come out in anxiety, it can come out in anger. And just think about that situation for a minute. Most men are told, big boys don't cry.
Don't cry.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, the girls don't get past it because now we got this phrase, put your big girl panties on and just move on. Okay.
All right.
Same
all right.
thing.
So nobody cries.
Yeah. Just get over it.
Yes.
Okay. Which is one of the myths that we talk about. That's a tool that does not work because that goes down inside of us, because little boys and big boys and grown men have their hearts broken and they can't cry. They can't do the normal process. So for men, it's acceptable to be angry.
Okay.
So the anger we see comes from something within, from a broken heart that's not healed.
Right.
And that anger then can turn into violence, into rage, into gangs, and to all of those things.
Sure.
And we have these problems and we're addressing this. These are symptoms. What's under these symptoms is something hurt.
It's hurt. It's
And
pain.
grief
Yeah.
recovery, if we can help our young men and our young women and our old men and our old women to be able to heal their hearts through this action program, then the violence can get less and less. The depression gets less and less.
Sure.
Suicide is less and less. We're addressing the problem. We can't go around grief. We've got to go through it.
That's one of your sayings I see on your website
Yes.
and your Facebook is you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it. You've got to go through it.
You have to go through it. And if you don't, that mountain just gets bigger and bigger.
Sure. And time doesn't necessarily heal. Time can prolong and make it harder.
Yes. Grief recovery has taught me that it's the actions I do in the time that bring healing. If I simply just sit here and wait, I'm going to probably be more miserable, sadder, in more pain than had I gone through it and done actions.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Totally makes
But
sense.
that's,
But
Tom,
I'll deal with it tomorrow.
yeah.
Right.
And yes, because it's hard. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do. And it gives you freedom from the pain. We are in jail with our pain.
A prisoner.
We are a prisoner.
Absolutely.
And I have the choice to get out of jail, and grief recovery gives me an action plan. It's not just a talking program. It's really reading and doing homework and doing some intense looking at my past and how I related to the situation.
Yeah.
And then what I need to let go of. We have to name it. Have to name what the grief is.
What the pain is.
Okay.
Right.
Then I have to claim it and claim the damage that it did. My keeping silent, or let's say my addiction of codependency, of being people pleasing and always making sure
Right.
that everybody else is taken care of to
Right.
the expense of myself. I modeled that, so the damage I did not only to myself in losing self-worth, my self-esteem, because your happiness was more important than mine. But I also modeled it for my children. And my friends and the people who I was in community with. So I see the damage that my modeling did for them. And I am guilty but not ashamed. And guilt has...
guilt means you should go back and change it.
I did something wrong, but I didn't know what I was doing because my mom was a wonderful, loving codependent, and that's what I was modeled with.
Okay.
So I don't feel this, all that guilt and shame, but I did something wrong. Now I can do something different. Okay. And so once I claim
never
it,
too late.
It's never. I'm 65. And I feel like I'm doing my best parenting right now because I'm being open and honest. I'll tell people I'm a hot woman, okay? And then I say, Everybody laughs like that. And then I
Well,
say,
it's but it.
but
it's
I am, because
fun.
for the first time in my life, after 46 years of being silent about my abuse
Yeah.
and about a lifestyle of keeping within, I am now try very hard to be honest, open, and transparent.
All three are really hard to do.
They are hard, but I'm as sick as my secrets. And so I was
Yes.
very sick
But
because I had lots of secrets.
You made peace with your past.
I did.
Man,
I did.
that's so strong. So, you guys, walkingwithjoy.com is your website.
Yes.
And also you can be found on Facebook that
Mm-hmm,
way. But you have counseling sessions, I guess you could
I
call
have
it.
groups.
Groups.
I am not a counselor.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good
I want
thing
to make
to
sure
define.
people know that.
Good.
And this is not to replace anything that anybody else is doing, not competition with anybody. But for me, when I was going through that very dark hole, I needed everything. I needed counselors, small groups. I needed mentors.
Yeah, it's not just one
sponsors.
answer.
I needed church. I
Sure.
needed pastors. I just needed everything. And I was going through cancer at the same time, so I had my medical team, and I had all of these different areas that were helping me, and I
Yeah.
needed every single one. They were saying the same thing, but they said it in just a little bit different language. And so,
Ways that help you respond to it.
yes,
Yeah.
and grief recovery gives us just a little different perspective. In grief recovery is not asking anybody to find closure. And that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, you're trying to find the end of the book.
Yes.
Okay.
Grief recovery helps us to find completion with the pain that we have that's tied into what we lost. The difference is, when I find closure, I had a lady that she lost her 6-week-old baby, okay?
Ouch.
And she had done everything that we just mentioned before, and she just was still...
It wasn't there.
It was
Yeah.
like the funeral was yesterday, and she'd been
Wow.
working on this for a couple years.
Goodness.
And so she came to grief recovery, and when we said, we don't want you to find clothes, there is no way a mother can shut the door on having on a child that they've lost. That child is always in their heart.
I bet she had never heard that.
She hadn't.
Yeah.
And and I tried to do things that I don't think our body allows us to do, because we cannot forget what we love.
No.
But we can say, and what completion is, saying what I wish would have been different, better, or more. Those unsaid communications. So that mom said, what would be different? I wish that my son had never been diagnosed with this disease.
Okay.
She recognized
Yeah.
it, said it to herself, and then we say it to a safe person to get it out.
Okay.
Then the second thing, what would have been better? I wish if he'd been diagnosed that there would have been treatment, and we could be going through that treatment right now.
Okay.
And the more, she said, I wish that I could have seen him put on his little backpack and get on that yellow school bus and go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
I wish I could
You
have.
got to say that out loud.
You got to say it. We got to recognize it. That's what's the conflicting feeling inside of us. And we have to say it to ourselves and to another person. I wish that I could have seen him jump off at the high dive at Inskip Pool.
Right.
Graduate, get married, have grandchildren. Those are all the things that, once a death happens, that's not the end of it. You've got the birthday coming up. You've got the Christmas where that child
It
or that
just
spouse
comes
is not
right
there.
back. Yeah.
And it's over and over and over. And until we say these things, it seems like a simple action, but it is very hard. And when it happens, there's freedom. You can let go of the pain.
I think a lot of times people just can't even imagine the freedom. They can't
No,
even.
they can't.
It's not even in sight.
No.
This happened, so I will never be happy again.
Yes.
And that's most furthest from the truth.
Yes, and what we're inviting people to do is to be able to look back and make peace with the things that we didn't get to say or we didn't get to do.
Yeah.
And let go of that so that we can look back at the past and say, oh, I remember this, and this is good.
Yeah. What that was beautiful.
Yes, it brings
Right.
that joy back
How
to
about
us.
that? Joy Gaetner, certified grief recovery specialist. Man, you are so insightful, and I know you've been there, and that really helps your ability to help others, and you are.
And it's my passion, Tom, because I had no tools except unhealthy tools. Like one of the things that I thought that I hear all the time, like in divorce especially, just replace the loss, get married again. So,
No,
you know.
yeah, you're just shelving it.
Yeah, because you still have that. And I want people to have tools when they're hurting.
That's a magic.
You don't have to be stuck in that pain.
Very nice. That's wonderful. We have more to talk about. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. 20 years. 20 years is how long I've been going to Malone Dentistry. Why? Because I feel comfortable there. I feel like there's experience, I feel like there's honesty, and I feel like a part of the family. He treats me, Dr. Stephen Malone, and his staff of 15, all of them, treat me like I'm a member of the family, which means that they're going to give me honest opinions on what I need. They do everything there. Smile makeovers, whole mouth rehabilitation, crown and bridge restorative procedures, cosmetic, root canals. They do it all right there. Dr. Stephen Malone, and also their newest dentist, Dr. Aaron Noble. KnoxvilleSmiles.com, Malone Dentistry, right off Kingston Pike on South Peters Road. If you want to feel good about who you're trusting your mouth with, that's the place. Malone Dentistry. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, and we'll have more with Joy Gaetner talking about loss and grief recovery in just a moment. You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. Nice to have you along. We have been talking today about grief. And grief is such a part of our lives that we don't have any clue of how to deal with. And when you know somebody that's going through a grieving process, it seems like everything we say is wrong. And it's a difficult place to be in both the griever and the person who's attempting to help. In the studio with me today, it's just been fascinating, is Joy Gaetner, certified grief recovery specialist. You're with the Grief Recovery Method.
Yes, and I'm founder of Walking with Joy.
It's just magic.
Yes.
And how long have you been doing this?
Just a year and a half.
Okay. Well, you seem like you've been doing it for 50 years.
Well, I've been in ministry for 45 years.
Okay. So you understand people grieving, and you understand, but you went through a lot of it yourself, and we uncovered that a little while ago. And I think one of the most magical things, and also the most difficult things to talk about, is the part about grief where you're angry with God. I remember very specifically when I was going through a difficult time, my anger with him in so many different ways. 1, you've forgotten about me. 2, you must be angry at me. Or 3, I've run out of blessings. And 4, how could you let this happen?
Where are you, God?
Yes, where are you and why? And totally forgetting about the fact that he is all-powerful and also all-knowing, and knowing what is best for me in my growth and drawing me toward him. So, but in the middle of a grief, that's hard to explain.
It's very hard. For me, God is with me, but he doesn't always get me out of the situations. Jesus still went to the cross.
Yeah.
My marriage still ended. And that's always a sad thing, that the marriage wasn't reconciled. And so it's like, God, I can't understand. I don't understand
how
these
could
things.
you let this happen?
Exactly. And I've thrown temper tantrums at God, and I feel God understands that.
He's bigger than
than that. And I say, God, I'm sorry. I'm just being a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum, but it hurts so bad, and we don't know what to do. And that letting go process, it's the image of the butterfly that's in the cocoon, has to struggle to get out. And I don't like this process.
No.
I don't like it.
No one does.
I hate faith journeys. I love them when they're over.
Yeah, when you look back.
But in the midst of them, it's like, I feel like I'm on a surfboard, and the water's always changing. So you always have to move your feet.
Continue
and so
to steer it, yeah.
You're never comfortable, and you can't get that foundation. Now, my past remembrance is God brings that firm foundation. You're not in that faith journey all of the time.
Yeah.
He gives you peace. But it is work to get through that. It is work for that butterfly to come out with those beautiful wings.
Sure. Well, I heard somebody say something not too long ago that was so healing to me, was that God is not interested in just tweaking my situation. He's interested in changing my heart.
Yes.
And sometimes my heart can be hard and it can be stubborn, and I need a couple of, struggles to show me what I'm made of and what He's made of. And that's hard to say, but I needed it.
I did too. I mean, it gave me a perspective of where God was in the order of worship, and my husband was before that.
Right.
And I believe it's what Paul's talking about in Corinthians, where he asked for that thorn to be removed, and it was not. And we have two choices. He can either drive us to our knees, like Paul said,
Mm-hmm.
and let go of trying to answer that why question, and just hold the mystery of who God is.
Yeah, embrace it.
Embrace it and not
hold on
understand
tight.
it, but hold on tight.
Yeah.
Or we can run away. But when we run away, it always comes back.
Yeah, well, you're running with that thorn still in your foot.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it is, it's just hard.
Yeah. In your program, you have something called STERBS. STERBS. What is that?
A STERB is a short-term energy-relieving behavior, and we use them to run from the pain.
Okay.
STERBs are things that we get so involved in that they're an obsession or an addiction, or they take over our lives so that we don't feel the pain that we are in.
Numbing, yes.
It's the numbing process.
Yes.
Like a drug, using drugs or alcohol,
But that's not the only thing, no.
workaholism,
Yeah.
shopaholic, retail therapy is one.
Right.
That
Eating.
shopping, eating. Anything that I use that will make me forget that I have something in my heart that hurts.
Sure.
And it's dangerous to get stuck there, because then we get consumed with that addiction, and so letting go of it is hard to let go of. And when we let go of it,
That's total comfort zone's gone then.
and the pain has continued to grow.
Right.
And so it's a good red flag to know, we all have to eat, we all have to go shopping, we all have to work. But when I do it, when my motivation under it is to run from the pain, to cover the pain, to numb out,
Yeah.
then I need to take a look and say, what's under that? And that helps me to say, what's going on inside of you?
Yeah.
And what do I need to take a look at? What is hurting? What needs to be healed?
Wow. That's so powerful. How does one get a hold of you? I know you're at different churches.
In different organizations.
Yeah.
And let me say this too. The Grief Recovery Institute has done something called a grief index, and Harvard's just finished a report this last year, but it talks about the hidden cost for corporations.
Ooh, yeah.
Think of a corporation, and how, look at this year has been huge. We think of Princess Diana's loss, and her sons 20 years later are coming out and saying, I didn't talk about it, and that was such a hard thing to go through, and I'm just
for 20
now,
years they've been a prisoner.
But now, yes, and now they're starting to talk about Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg. When her husband died a couple years ago, she said, this is not working. She couldn't go to work. So our corporations are spending billions of dollars on grief.
Okay.
Because people, when they come back from work, they're distracted. Their productivity is lower. On-the-job accidents happen more.
Okay.
Many turn to drugs and alcohol. Then that turns into rehab cost.
Right.
Obesity comes into that. Then that has...
It all ties.
It all ties
and that
in.
magic word we've used a few times called stuck.
Yes.
People become stuck.
Yes. So you can get a hold of me at walkingwithjoy.com.
Okay.
On the web.
Okay.
Or Facebook is Walking with Joy. Or you can call me at 865-963-9221.
Okay.
And I have many classes that people can join, or there are groups, or I do one-to-one coaching. And I do 1-hour introductions because grief recovery has just a little different format than a lot of programs. And people say, oh, grief, yeah, I've done that. And this is just something a little different there. If you go to griefrecovery.com and look for a certified specialist, you can put in Knoxville's zip code, and my name is one of two that comes up.
Okay.
But I would love to do any kind of a 1-hour free introduction to any organization if you have a meeting. You know, the holidays are coming up.
Right.
Thanksgiving dinner's coming up where we might be with people that we've got some resentments against. That's a grief.
Okay.
That's a loss. Okay.
It's a loss of a smile that's gone away.
Yes, or a loss of a relationship that you didn't have with a brother or a mother.
Yeah.
And so getting ready for the holidays is a way to work through that grief so that, and the amazing thing is, Tom, when we work through our grief ourselves and are let go and forgive, then I'm a different person. So when I come into a room with the person that I've had a resentment with, I don't have that armor up.
Sure.
I'm not I'm not an aggressor.
Yeah, you're not waiting for them to say that one thing that's going to make you mad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I'm different, everything in the room changes,
Oh,
and
sure.
you can be open that
You
things
start
will
the
peace.
process of
And there might
of
not be
happiness.
reconciliation, but I don't feel the pain of being in that.
Yeah.
I personally, and know many people that work through grief recovery, and then they've been able to be with the people that had hurt them.
How about that?
With peace, and it's amazing what can come from that.
Your name is so fitting. Joy Gaetner. It's just magical to hear your answers and your process to grief recovery. We've got a little more time here in just a second to wrap all this into a tight little bow. And I know that's very difficult to do in 1 hour, but I think we've uncovered a lot, especially just the need to reach out to people like you to help recover from grief. And
Yes.
it's there. It's
Yes.
there.
Yes.
So God bless you. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, and today's program is brought to you by Malone Dentistry. Dr. Stephen Malone. He has been taking care of me and my family for the last 20 years, and there's a simple reason for it. I trust him. I feel good every time I go in there. They all are positive, uplifting, and they care about one thing, about our experience. They treat you like a member of their family. Dr. Malone and his team of 15 provide a comprehensive oral care plan. Dr. Malone has extensive expertise and education well beyond what's required just for licensing. And you can tell when he sits down and talks to you, you know there's experience behind that. And there's honesty. Malone Dentistry, KnoxvilleSmiles.com, right off Kingston Pike on South Peters Road. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. We've got more with Joy Gaetner talking about loss and grief recovery in just moments.
God put a million doors in the world for his love to walk through. One of those doors is you. The voice of truth says do not be afraid.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, and we have been talking so much about grief today. In the studio with me is Joy Gaetner, who is a certified grief recovery specialist. And, you know, one thing I don't want the day to go by without talking about the things that happened in Las Vegas. And earlier this week, that was just so painful for the whole nation to watch. And maybe it didn't touch us directly. It's still a grief. It's still a loss because the innocence of our nation and the fright that, goodness, you can't go anywhere without being afraid that something like that might happen.
Exactly. And we have it here in our own, city.
Sure.
Shootings.
Yes.
Just random shootings, drive-by shootings. Our Xavion, who was killed, are young people that are being killed senselessly.
Yeah, it's hard.
And accidents happen on the road, not even just, that intended violence, but
Yeah,
accidents
just things.
happen.
They do happen.
Life turns on a dime.
Yeah. And we've got to understand that there are things out there that can help us with the grief. That's your whole purpose. And your passion for helping people who are grieving is just infectious. It's just wonderful to see. And one thing I want to talk about really fast is the fact that people who grieve, I know this firsthand, I just don't think maybe my grief is as bad as the other person near me. They're going through something much worse, so I don't have the right to grieve because they're doing it worse. And that's not true.
It's not true. We don't compare the pain. And we all come to grief recovery from a different loss.
Yeah.
And we're not going to compare that you lost that and I lost this and somebody else lost that.
It still hurts.
Each one of us, whether we've lost whatever we've lost, a job, a child, a pet, all of those produce pain.
Yeah.
And so we don't compare the pain. We're looking at ourselves and what we can do. Grief recovery gives you a process. Once you finish this class, this course, then you have a process to work through every pain that you have.
You have tools.
Yes, and you do it one at a time. Grief takes time, and it's hard work. The people who come through this class are courageous and valiant people.
Right.
And they get out of jail.
Oh,
they get out of jail. They get out of jail and able to live life free and in peace.
But that old adage of time heals.
Yes, it
Time
doesn't.
will not heal if you don't do something about it.
No, and you can't just move on, and you can't just get over it. I would have loved to have just gotten over my divorce, but nobody told me how to get over it.
You're right.
They didn't give me any tools.
In 3 months I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
No.
I'd like to, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah, you got to take action.
And you can't replace. So many of our marriages, 50% of first marriages end in divorce, 73% second, third marriages, because many people get married again too quickly.
Right.
And for the wrong reason. If I just have another spouse, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
You can't replace the first one.
Yeah, you've got to work through it.
You've got to go through this process. And so by being able to have this tool, you can, and it goes from to our generations too. It goes to my children and my grandchildren.
Wow.
And it's one step at a time that joy and that peace ripples out, where our nation can have unity again, where it can be a safe place, where we can be healed people, where we can have that peace and that joy.
Less anger and more joy.
Yes.
All right, so explain once again, walkingwithjoy.com.
Walkingwithjoy.com is on the web. Walking with Joy is on Facebook. You can get a hold of me for groups, and I've got several groups coming this fall. In fact, I've got an introduction at Powell Church on the 22nd and the 26th, and I'm doing an introduction on the 16th at Cherokee Mills.
Nice.
And they're just free. They're 1 hour. If you're interested in just learning about it, it will give you a boatload of information in just that 1 hour.
And you have books?
I have books. There are books, a handbook that we have. And I've got a book, too, that it's when children grieve. So as parents, we can help them. And then there's
what a powerful tool that is.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And then we have a book, the handbook for pet loss. Because
there's an actual handbook for pet loss.
There is.
Isn't that magic?
Because we know how much that hurts.
I've had 15 dogs in my life, and right now I have 3. So that basically deducts I've lost 12 dogs in my life.
And you have an image of those dogs, don't you?
All there.
Yes. See, you cannot close the door on it,
no.
But you can complete the pain so that you can remember the good things.
But I do smile.
And you do smile. And one of the ladies that finished this class, she said, afterwards, she said, I found my smile again. And that's what grief recovery can do.
And that's what makes your eyes so bright.
Yes. So call me at 865-963-9221.
The Grief Recovery Method.
Mm-hmm. And Walking with Joy.
Yes. Joy Gaetner, certified grief recovery specialist. That's the first time I've ever met somebody who had that title. That's awesome.
Well, I'm honored to be the first person to be there.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate
what
you
a
and the
magical
program.
time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. And if you are suffering with grief right now, if you're dealing with the pain, call Joy, because she can help you find your joy. This is Dealing with Life, today brought to you by Malone Dentistry. I'm Tom Baker.